Welcome to Mizzou Cloud and DevOps YouTube channel. As part of our online learning platform for application-inspired cloud and DevOps curriculum, today we will be looking at our sixth module, which will be based on the DevOps technology of Ansible. I'm Roshan Milpani, and we are going to go over the Lab 6 of this portal. So the Lab 6 is on infrastructure as code, usage of Ansible on AWS with cybersecurity operations application. The purpose of this lab is to perform tasks such as managing configuration, deploying applications, service of orchestration, and integration of different nodes by using an automation tool, which is Ansible. The lab topics include installation of Ansible on AWS EC2 instances and configuring Ansible. We'll be using Ansible to manage infrastructure, deploy an example web application on a server, and finally deploy a cybersecurity operation use case application for security auditing. Ansible is an open source automation tool that performs tasks such as configuration management, deployment of application, integration, and orchestration of different services. It helps improve the efficiency, management, scale, and performance of the end-to-end development stack of an organizational unit. The structure of Ansible consists of a control node, which is a system where Ansible is primarily installed. You run Ansible commands such as Ansible inventory or Ansible playbook, etc. on this control node. The other aspect is managed node, which is a remote system or number of remote systems or hosts that are controlled by Ansible. The inventory is the list of the managed nodes that are logically organized. You can create an inventory on the control node to describe the host deployments to Ansible. The Ansible concepts here, we're going to talk about collections, modules, tasks, and playbooks. A collection is a distribution format for Ansible content that can include playbooks, roles, modules, and plugins. Modules are basically the codes and binaries that Ansible copies to and executes on each managed nodes to accomplish the action defined in every task. A task is a unit of action. In Ansible, you can execute a single task once with an ad hoc command. Playbooks, whereas, contains ordered lists of tasks which will run in top-down fashion. It's saved so that you can run these tasks in an orderly manner, and these are written in YAML and are easy to read, write, share, and understand. The use case application is that of cybersecurity operations. In this use case, we will use Ansible engine and two worker nodes. One of the worker nodes will be working as an attacker, and the other node will be the victim of this attacker. And both of these nodes will be administrated by the Ansible. The main goal through this use case application is to help students and learners learn to use the Ansible to determine through an audit if there is any suspicious actions happening in the node. In this use case, the playbook will have two goals. Firstly, it will be used to obtain a baseline to understand the initial configuration of all the nodes. And secondly, we will be using or performing an audit on the nodes and obtain a different report that we'll be using to compare with our initial baseline. Our audit playbook is taking into consideration the following aspects of these nodes: system data acquisition, the types of operating systems, CPU model, speed, cores, memory, and used physical memory. Users and groups acquisition will have list of users created after Linux installation, list of users with sudo access, groups with sudo access, etc. The storage data acquisition will look into installed physical disks, partitions, and available disk space along with the file system and other storage related information. Networking data acquisition will have information on the network devices, routing table, open ports, established SSH connections between nodes, daemon logs, and active system services. So in this lab, we guide the learners and students to deploy Ansible on AWS Cloud, get familiar with the basic concepts and functionalities of Ansible, use an example application to use Ansible to manage 2 remote nodes, and then to deploy a use case application to learn how to use Ansible to deploy a cyber defense scenario. This lab module can be accessed from the following or highlighted link, and the number of the module and also the heading of the module is Infrastructure as Code, Ansible on AWS with Cybersecurity Operations app with lab number 6. Now I will move on to demonstrate the 4 bullet points that is shown here through a deployment of Ansible to deployment of the use case application to learn the cyber defense scenario. So for this Ansible lab, we will require 3 virtual machines, so 3 EC2 instances. Navigate to your AWS console and go to the EC2 dashboard. And if you don't know how to, you can just search for EC2 here and pick the first option. And from here, let's go on and create a couple things first. The first thing would be the key pairs. Create key pair, say Ansible, and if you're using Windows and PuTTY application within Windows, you should go for .ppk. But if you're using Mac or the Linux machines or even PowerShell in Windows, you would want to select this .pem, which is used for the OpenSSH. Okay, now let's create this key pair and just save it in your preferred location. We're going to need this in a bit. And then the next step would be to create security group. Security groups would allow you to tell this the cloud what port to allow and what not to allow. Here we will be looking at traffic such as SSH, because we want to SSH into our nodes. So let's just give this some information such as performing the Ansible lab. Again, these 2 values can be anything that you want. Don't have to be what I just put. Add a rule, say all traffic, and then let them be anywhere from the IPv4. And also add one more rule, just for the sake of being able to SSH into the machines that we're going to create in a bit. Once you've done that, just hit create security group, and within a few seconds you will have those the security group ready. The next step would be to launch instances. You can access that from EC2 dashboard from here, or you can go to instances and then access from there. Click on launch instance, and from here what we want to do is basically give it some name. For example, let's just call it Ansible here, and let's use the Amazon Linux and keep everything default for now. And even for the instance type, we're okay with just using T2 micro, so just let it be. And then from the key pair, let's select the one that we created, which is Ansible. From the network settings, we could select the existing group that we just created, or even create from here. It's also possible. I created the group called Ansible, so there we go. And Now, all we need to do is leave this storage configuration the same as it is by default. And here, instead of saying 1, let's say 3, because we're going to need 3 different instances, like I mentioned earlier. And these instances would be, the first one would be for creating for your Ansible engine, and the other 2 would be your Ansible nodes. So let's go ahead and create these instances. Okay, this initiation has been successful. Then you can go back to instance, and you can see that there is 3 different values here, right? Okay, so that means we've stood up our machines here. You could you could change these to maybe rename these to maybe call this one Ansible node 1 and Ansible node 2. We'll just leave this one as Ansible and we'll just rename the other 2. Now so this first one would be your control node, and these are going to be, so like your master node is going to be this one, whereas the worker nodes are going to be these 2. So what we would need to do is go on and do some configuration, right? So you'll need to configure the Ansible control node and install Ansible and also like other required libraries. So you'll be installing it on the main node mostly, so which is, let's just go into this. So here's the details for that instance, and there here you can see there is a DNS value or the IP address, with either of these could be used to SSH. You will be using the SSH login for the Ansible engine and the nodes to work together. For this purpose, we will need to upload the private key that we downloaded earlier, that we called the Ansible, from the AWS to the engine instance, right? So it can log into the nodes, basically, like, you know, the main engine can log into the other 2 nodes without having to generate new key pairs. So for this, what we would do is locate that place where we created our instance. So I'll simply start a new PowerShell window, and then I'll navigate to downloads, and this is where I saved my Ansible, right? So what I would do is use secure copy, which is SCP, and then I'm going to point it to the ansible.pem. So that's the file or the key that I created. And then I'll again reuse the name ansible.pem. And then I would say, let's look at the, first of all, let's look at the username for this guy. So it's EC2 user, right? So the EC2 user is the username, so that's what I would need to use for this. So I'm going to say EC2 user, and then I'll point it to my public IP, which is simply located here, or again you can drill down to see the public address, or even you can use the DNS. It does the same task, so you can just do that. And then from here, what I'll do is just paste that I don't know if it copied. So now it should be copied. Okay, there you go. And I need to specify where I want this file to be stored, right? Which is going to be the home folder, inside which there is this SSH folder, and I will press enter. So it'll take a little bit of time, and it will first off ask me to whether or not I want to continue to connecting to this computer from my local machine, and when I say yes, it allows me to do so. And Ansible.pem now finally has been stored there. Now, what I would want to do is log into the control node, which is basically this. So from here, how I can do that is SSH -i, the key name again, and the EC2 user is the username, so I'm going to use that, and I'm simply going to point to this IP address that I pulled from the instance. When I do that, note that it won't ask me to say yes or no to the earlier question, because it's already been recognized as one of the systems that I would connect to. So see, I'm already inside this computer as the EC2 user. Now, what I need to do is simply perform some commands, such as initially cloning a GitHub repository that we have is into this computer, so as we can install Ansible. For that, what I'm going to do is first of all install Git. Again, all these commands are going to be in your lab manuals in the MCD portal. So again, most of these commands are also easy to copy from the portal, so you have, like, it's easier for you to use it. Now, once I have cloned that, installed the Git, what I want to do is right now I'm in the home directory, but if you're not, you could just simply say cd and use this sign tilde, and so that you'll be in your home directory. Right now I'm going to clone using the git command that I just installed, and the clone, what I want to clone is a repository called Ansible demo, which we host in our Mizzou Cloud DevOps account in GitHub. And once I hit enter, it should clone it. Now once that happens, you'll see that there is this Ansible demo folder, which you can probably just go in to check what it has. It has some files, so we'll look into some of these in a bit. So first of all, we need to install Ansible. So what we're going to do is use this control node install to install Ansible and treat this one as the control node. For that, I would say sudo bash and then control node install.sh. Okay, so it should take a little bit of time, but then it should successfully install Ansible. So this kind of completes the installation for Ansible. Okay, it's taking a little bit longer, but that's fine. It should be up in a bit. This is successfully been configured. Now, going on to the basics chapter in the portal, what we want to look at is a few things, such as the Ansible's inventory file. So if I do go to, I'm actually inside the demo folder itself. So if I look into the inventory folder that is inside, and then type in hosts, it will basically be a text file, and then when I use cat, it's going to print what is there in that text file. You can see here the local is basically this Ansible engine that we have, and then the nodes are going to be node 1 and node 2. We're going to use that in a bit. So now let's look into the configuration file, right? So this is usually found inside of etc. So if I go to etc, and then there is a lot of things here, but I'm sure there is also Ansible somewhere because we just downloaded. So here it is. And so now what I'm going to do is simply go to Ansible. Ansible, and then when I look inside, there is this configuration file, so ansible.cfg. So this file basically allows you to perform like optimizations and customizations for running playbooks, and playbooks are a list of actions that you can perform using Ansible, and you can create and use your own configuration file, like we will be doing something in this lab, and we'll take a look at how we do that basically. So let's look into what it has. So let's just look into this ansible.config file. So there's a lot of things here. It kind of like allows you to set information such as what inventory to use, and there's a lot of different options that you can do here. So it kind of gives you the entire configuration of your Ansible. So basically, let's see, at the end what you can see is Yeah, just like for your own reference, this is the Ansible file. Now what we need to do is kind of like update the the Ansible configuration, right? So why we need to do this is basically we want to at least initiate the nodes that we're going to use, which are going to be the private IP address of the other nodes that we're going to access, right? So again, these three nodes that we created here, Ansible node 1, node 2, and Ansible itself, they all are under the same VPC. So I could definitely just opt to use the private IP address. So for example, if I drill down to the node 1, this value here is going to be the private IP, right? So if I use this, it's like a lot more secure. It doesn't necessarily need to go outside of the network. So it can basically be, work from the inside itself. So let's go back to the demo folder. Ansible demo. Okay, so here, as you can see, we have this, the working directory of Ansible. What we want to do now is update the inventory and configuration. For that, what we would do is use the command control node install again. Ansible, oops. Actually, we're already in there, so just type in control. Okay, just type in control and we'll find control node install. Oops, this time around we need to configure, sorry, we already installed it. So let's just use configure.sh file. So this will allow us to configure the usage of the nodes, and what we're going to provide next is the private IP of the node 1 and node 2. So for here, for this one, we have the private IP of instance of Ansible node 1 that we can pass, and then we can go to say, okay, 2 space. Okay, now we can go back to the other instance, which is the node 2, and then pull the private IP address of that node, and then simply paste it here. Now, what this does is simply sets those node values that we tried earlier, right? So if I go do this, it should run just fine. Now, if I look into the inventory file, and then say hosts, see, these two values just got updated by this configure.sh. Now let's look at the hosts from the computer that we have, right? So like this VM instance. So let's look at etc/hosts. See, so the node 1 and node 2 are already added here. Now we need to do the next step, which is simply updating the Ansible configuration. So to update the private key file to to use the same private key to access all of these computers that we just initialized, what we're going to do is simply go to the manage user folder first, and for that we do cd manage user, and when we're inside that, what we're going to do is copy the command simply for now, which is going to be something like this. So you might have noticed we were looking at so we're looking at the tutorial, and at this point we're trying to update this Ansible configuration. I just copied over the file that I saw, or I used from the what do we call the tutorial. And now for here, what we do is we can simply go to change this private key value to just say ansible.pem. And then here I use a different name, right? So I'm just going to say ansible.pem, and this should simply perform what we're trying to do. So again, we have some other options to do this. If you find this command a little bit confusing, you have another way just to do this, right? So now we need to test the connection from engine node to other nodes. But before that, what we need to do is update the permissions on this file that we just initialized. For that, what we do is chmod and give the permissions of 400, and then we point to the Ansible file that we created, and then press enter. So that will change the permission level here. And now what I'm going to do is SSH into the node 1 by using this exact key. Ansible.pem, and then the name of the user in the node 1 is also this. Now I'm going to go to this node 1 here, and then collect the IP address, the private IP, and then I'm going to paste it here. So what this would do is try to access the node 1 from engine. And again, to remember, this computer that we're on is actually the control node. It's the Ansible engine itself. So first time it will check if you want to do it. So look at this. So we wanted to connect to the node 1, right? So we are in the node 1 right now. So this means that we can easily connect to the node 1 just by using the key that we have here. Perfect. Okay, now what we need to do is do something similar for the node 2, right? So let's just exit from this node 1 to go back to the Ansible control node, which is the 172.31.12.111. And from here, we're just going to go up arrow to find that. And then from here, I'm going to go to the instances to the node 2, copy the IP address, private IP address, and then replace this one with the new one. Okay, so once I've done this, it should also allow me to enter to this computer, which it does. I'm going to exit, and this basically shows that I can communicate with both the nodes. Now let's try a few things, right? So we want to make sure this node can communicate with the other 2 nodes. I mean, we already saw that it can reach the other nodes, but let's try a simple demonstration, right? We want to go back to the Ansible demo folder. Here we are, and then from here, I'm just going to say, I'm just going to copy this command here. Copy and paste. So the Ansible nodes are trying to ping using the username EC2 user. Again, remember the key that I had created is ansible.pem, so that's what I'm going to use. Once I hit enter, it should try to perform and if you can see here, the node 1 was successfully pinged. So if this value is ping pong, that means that it actually received received back response from these 2 nodes. Now let's try to run simple bash commands on the nodes. For that, we're going to check the names of the hosts. Okay, so we're going to call, again, I'm going to copy the command here. Again, for each of these steps, we're going to use the same key file, and so this will basically try to connect to the nodes and then get their host names. So once I press enter, it should say the node 1 host is of this IP address, and then the node 2 is of this IP address, and this basically is the name of those hosts. And now let's also look into some system storage values of these nodes. So I'm going to paste again. So simply what this is going to do is go to the nodes and then run this command df-h, which basically gives the size of the storage, or is a Linux command to get the information of your instance, storage information. So once I click on that, it will basically give me the different file systems within these 2 nodes, and also give the sizes of them, how much of them are used and how much of them are available, and so on. And similarly, I can perform memory, check memory. For that, I'm going to use free -m, and then it will give me how much of memory is being used, how much of that is free, how much of that is in cache, and how much of that is in available state. All right, now we're going to list all the remote nodes. So for that, what we're going to do is use the command Ansible nodes inventory host list hosts. Okay, so these are the list of all the remote nodes that we're connected to. Okay, now that we've looked at a few simple like bash commands, we can make some changes on the nodes, right? We want to see if Ansible is allowing us to change the nodes from within. So for that, let's copy the command from the tutorial to show like if we can restart the SSH daemon. Okay, so here I'm again going to use the same key, and this basically will like run this command. So name of the service is sshd. Like you can see the service, the name is sshd, state is restarted, and enabled is yes. This is how we want to have that. And now if I press enter, it should show me that this instance is running. Okay, let's go. So it just says it's changed to state, like the state was changed and it was changed to started and enabled. Basically, this will give you some idea on how you can like make changes to the nodes that you're using, right? Now let's try to install a package in the other nodes. For that, there is another command, which is okay. So we want to install a package called git, and then use the present as value for state, and again the key value is ansible.pem. When I press enter, you should basically install that in the other devices. Perfect. So it looks like we were able to do that. So it's like changes where the git was installed. So this simply like streamlines the different things that you want to do and automate it. So like all these we're looking at right now are ways to simply showcase that Ansible can perform all of these actions if we can like provide them in an end-to-end fashion. Now so the log output is there. Now we want to upload or download files to or from the remote nodes. So let's create a file called test file. To do that, we can use the command touch and then name it test file. And remember, we're using this value here, which basically means we're going to create this file in the home folder. If I press enter, you should create that file, and it has done so. Now what I'm going to do is basically copy this file right to node 1, and for that I'm going to use this command. So Ansible, so look at this, we're not using all the nodes, we're just using node 1 for now, and then we're going to use the key to make that copy of the source, which is the file that we just created, and the destination will be inside the node 1 under the temp uploaded file. So if we press enter, you should simply copy the file, and as you can see, there is like the changes have happened to the destination of TMP uploaded file, and it's a file name basically. So yeah, this shows that we were able to do this, and now what we can do is try to fetch this, right? So we want to fetch this in a folder. So let's go to the root folder here, and then we can see there is one test file, and then there is Ansible demo. So now what we're going to do is, by using the command, this command, what we're going to do is from node 1, we're going to fetch a file which we just copied over, right? So we copied over this test file into node 1. Now we're going to fetch that. And when we do that, what we want to do is set the destination to this ~/downloaded file. So it will go into this downloaded file. So basically I'm going to change the name of the key and then press enter. So Okay, as inventory source. Inventory was parsed. Okay, there may have been some issues here. Let's take a quick look at what might have gone wrong here. Ansible node 1 inventory hosts. Oh, okay, so we're not inside the Ansible demo, right? So that's why it's throwing that error. So inventory, it's trying to connect to the inventory file, but we're not inside the Ansible demo. So let's just do that first. Go into the Ansible demo folder, and here's where the inventory is, as you can see here. So if we run the command again, using the Ansible PEM, it should be able to do it. Perfect. So it just fetched the file. Now we want to make sure that the file has been fetched properly, right? So if we go to this main file, see here, there's a folder called downloaded file. We can go to downloaded file, and then from inside, we can find that there is this node 1, and from here there's temp. And then from here, there's uploaded file, which basically is the copy that we fetched from. So we use this to come now initially we only had Ansible demo and test file. Then once we fetched it, it created a new folder, and inside the folder tree, it created this uploaded file. Okay, so this perfectly works. So let's now move on to the next step. Okay, so Ansible playbook. So we're looking at the Ansible playbook next. Here, what we want to do is initially create a new SSH key pair for a different user called Ansible DevOps, and to use on the remote node. So we'll create a new key pair in a specific folder that I will show in a bit, and we can name the key to anything, or just leave it by default by calling it ID RSA when prompted to do so, and it will look something like this. So if I go to the home and EC2 user, it's going to take me to my home folder, and then from here, if I go to SSH, it will take me to this SSH folder. I have some keys already here, but I want to create a new key, right? So I'm going to say SSH key gen. It will create a new folder, and it's going to ask a file name where I want to save this, right? By default, it's going to save it to ID_RSA. So for this use, let's just leave it that way. And then for the enter passphrase, we don't enter anything. It's fine. So it does not have a password, but it's okay because we're using private network here. So it ended up creating a new key. So if I go on to list all the files here, I can see these two things are created. The first one is the private key, and the second one is the public key. So now what we're going to do is, so moving on to the security use case, we're going to look into a playbook which we will go over in a bit. First of all, let's try to see if Ansible can ping all the nodes. Yeah, it successfully pings all the three nodes, the engine and the node 1 and node 2. So we're going to use this audit playbook that you will see inside the Ansible demo. Here, the folder audit, we're going to go to that folder and check the playbook that we created. So this file gives a lot of information to perform this security use case that we have. What it takes into consideration is a lot of things related to the nodes, such as the system's data acquisition, type of operating system, CPU models, CPU speed, and etc. Users and the groups of users, storage data, and even the networking data. So to work with this, we're going to initially make sure that our configuration file is properly set. So let's just exit out of this, or just clear this out from the screen. And now let's see what this Ansible configuration file has first. Again, you'll see this says your private key. Again, this is something that we need to change like we did for the previous task. So I'm going to simply copy over the command, or let's do for this one, let's try to change it manually. It's the same thing, right? So I explained to you how we could change it using the SCD command. So for this use case, I'm just going to show how you can just manually change it. So going inside, pressing the I to insert the values in the Vim editor, I'm going to go here and then remove this to point to my actual private key, which is ID_RSA. So once I've done that, I'm going to come out of this, saving it. And now if I check this value, so you can see that the ID_RSA is changed. So this means we're set to go. Now let's make sure the audit YAML file has no syntax errors. To do that, again, we need to check playbook, the syntax check command to simply check if this is a correct YAML file. So yeah, does not show any errors. So hoping this will work, I will execute this. Okay. So basically just set all those information that we did, try to get all the information, try to make sure we can audit our system. And while this is running, I'm going to explain about our cybersecurity scenario that we're going to look. So our small infrastructure, right, we only have like 2 nodes. What we want to do is, first of all, we're going to make the node 1 vulnerable by executing a script that will basically create different user accounts, create a group called attack, and make new users part of it. And it will assign the new group all the permission possible to permission possible in the system, so the users who belong to that group are able to execute some sudo commands. We'll take a look at it in a bit, and it can also collect the internal data into a file and move all those files into a different node, which is basically going to be the node 2. So it's just a simple use case of cybersecurity that we want to demonstrate with this. So let's first of all SSH into the node 1 by using the key that we have, and also by using the Ansible DevOps user that we created. So for that, I will use -I. The path of the key is, if you remember, .ssh and then ID_RSA, right? So using that to go into the Ansible DevOps user, I'm going to use the instance IP of node 1. So the node 1 is right here. So the private IP, or I could use the public IP, doesn't matter. So let's just see if this allows. Okay, I'm inside that system, right? So now what I can do is, so you can see that there is this tilde. If you happen to be in a different folder, I would ask you to go back to that, the root of the home folder of this user. And from there, I'm going to create a new script. So once this script has been created, so it's an empty file, right? So I need to move some of the information that has been provided to us in the Mizzou Cloud DevOps lab tutorial in chapter 6. I'm going to copy that information, which is basically going to show in a bit. Okay, so here is the information. It's a bit hard to read, But that's basically due to the fact that these are all commented out. Once I take them off, you should be able to see it. So I'm just removing the comments, comment out sections here. A few more steps. Okay, so this is the script that we're going to run. So like I explained earlier, it is simply going to create a group called attack, and then basically provide all the pseudo access to whoever is in this particular group. So now let's do this. So let's save this for now. And once I've saved that, I want to check, it's going to use a file called users.txt. If you didn't notice, let's cat into that script again. As you can see here, it's using a file called users.txt, which will basically be a list of users that it will use to create it, right? So if I go to the users.txt file, which is again inside of the folder, which, just give me 1 second, we're actually going to create one. So yeah, so how we're going to create is, initially there's an attacker script, and to create that we're just going to do vim users.txt. So we're just going to create that file here, and inside of that we're just going to give random user entries, which are going to be user1, user2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, so 3, and okay, so right, so we're going to create this file here, and then basically save it. And if I cat that again, you can see it has those user values that I created. Now I'm going to execute the bash script, the attacker script. To do that, I'm going to just type in sudo bash attacker.sh. Okay, so it basically ended up doing creating a bunch of users and passwords and so on and so forth. So now that the script was created in this node 1, we want to just exit from it for now, and then we're going to go, like, we're on the Ansible engine, right? So which is the main controller. We're going to simply use the audit playbook in the Ansible controller to collect data into a second file called data.txt. So let's take a look at what the audit file has. Let's simply go on to check this, and here there is a variable which is at the top, which basically says destination, and so we have this baseline.txt, right? So we want to create a new file called data.txt. So first of all, our playbook that we already created was using this baseline text, and now we're going to edit this to simply point to a different file, which is going to be data.txt. So let's go on to changing that file, which is going to be done by using the vim, and I'm going to change the value of that destination to say data. Okay, so once I've done that, I'm going to exit from here, and I'm going to run this node or playbook again. Perfect. Okay, so there has been some audits generated. If I see here, the initial one was baseline.txt, the new one is called data.txt. Let's try to compare these two files. Text and data.txt. Okay, so there's a lot of things that have changed. The load average, there is the number of additional users being created. Initially, there were some users who 1, 2, 3, but now there's a little bit more value that you can see here. And there's a lot of changes here. So a lot of things have been updated. The second one, because we went on to create new users and then basically change a lot of things to get the internal information. So yeah, so basically this shows that the system's configuration has been updated because new users were created by the attacker and also gained some access from the system. So this basically concludes our Ansible lab. Thank you so much for listening.